outbreak of pneumonia in the Netherlands, coupled with the emergence of respiratory illnesses in China, India, the Ukraine, not to mention several other countries, is literally cause for heightened concern due to its potential to significantly impact the housing market. I mean, think about this, guys. This could really just kind of blow up on our faces, and especially a lot of these expensive areas like New York, California, Seattle, Nevada, and Florida. In fact, this outbreak, it remains undiagnosed, or at least now they're trying to point the finger at existing viruses that it may be looking like, kind of like reminiscent of what we experienced a couple years back, where around this time we were hearing murmurs of this new case, this new virus that was overseas, but we didn't worry about it because it was taking place in China. Here we are in the United States. It's not really our issue, right? Wrong. So the fact that the outbreak is spreading and it's a respiratory illness that's affecting multiple countries, it definitely suggests a certain level of uncertainty regarding the nature and, of course, the severity of this underlying health issue. Not to mention, it seems like this new virus is targeting our kids. Now, this particular level of uncertainty can create fear, anxiety among the general population, which of course could influence the decisions related to housing. Government responses can vary. In fact, very strict measures are being put in place. Previously, when we encountered a situation like this, some of these measures included lockdowns, restrictions on movement, and it could affect people's ability and decisions to be able to buy and sell homes. But here's the thing, guys. We're not experiencing lockdowns, at least not yet. And that doesn't mean that we couldn't experience lockdowns in the future. Now, that's getting several steps ahead of ourselves. But at the same time, let's not pretend like this didn't already happen in the recent past. So what do we do from here, right? Well, number one, we got to keep in mind that this is not just some new mystery virus. There's several key C-19 trends that authorities are tracking and are now accelerating around the country. In fact, the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, well, the CDC released an announcement Friday, and it's the first major nationwide uptick in the spread of the virus that's been seen in months. But hold on to your seats, folks, because the nightmare may be elaborating from this point forward. Now, before I even get into the next part that I want to share with you, please take a second. Let me know if you guys are able to hear me. If you can, please let me know if you're able to see me. We're live right now. I see several folks getting onto the live, into the comments here. I see T-Tal, Daisy Pierce, Chris Dunlop, Doug Rice. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. And dropping a like only takes a second. I really appreciate that. Now, think about this, guys. Think about this. Supply chains could literally be affected by what we're seeing right now. This is a reality. We've seen this before, and it might sound like deja vu, but this could very well be our new reality. Just 24 hours ago, 5 senators came out and they asked very directly, in my opinion, fairly demandingly. 5 senators came out and asked President Biden to impose a travel ban on China after respiratory illness cases rise. 5 Republican senators led by Marco Rubio asked President Joe Biden and his administration to ban travel between the United States and China after a spike in these Chinese respiratory illnesses cases. Quote, "We should immediately restrict travel between the United States and China until we know more about the dangers imposed by this illness." Now, I got to ask you guys. First of all, this was signed by Marco Rubio, the top Republican on the Senate Intelligence Committee, along with Senator J.D. Vance, Rick Scott, Tommy Tuberville, and Mike Braun. Now, I got to ask you guys, do you feel safe here in the country? I mean, like, this is not to scare anybody, but this is a legitimate question. I want to ask my community here. Do you feel safe in the country? Do you feel like the Biden administration has things under control and we shouldn't have to worry about anything? If you think that we're good to go, type a 1. Don't worry about anything. Biden and his administration has things under control. If you don't think that Biden and his administration has things under control, type the number 2. And so This is what we're seeing. I'm gonna share a link to this article in the description down below this video after the live ends. So if you guys want to follow along what I'm covering with you guys, I like to cite my sources, and I will also be sharing a link to this article on my Twitter page. So if you're not following me on Twitter, you could follow me on Twitter and get immediate access to this article and to the documentation for which I'm sharing with you guys. So that is on my Twitter. So now let's think about this for a second. What would happen if a ban were to happen on travel, especially from China? I mean, I can give you some hints. I can give you some, my take on what could possibly happen. Think about the supply chain. Think about shortages. We saw shortages happen last year. Well, some shortages were still taking place last year, especially if you look in the car market. There's still shortages on cars, car parts. But specifically, there was an overwhelming amount of shortages taking place in grocery stores. Just imagine the consequences of tens of thousands, perhaps even hundreds of thousands of workers on the ships and in the ports are deemed to be threats, health threats, right? Like this could literally bring everything to a grinding halt. Now, I'm not trying to scare anybody, but I'm just looking at, I'm not going to ignore what could happen, especially since it's happened in the last 4 years. And no one thought that a complete country shutdown would happen. Now, again, we're nowhere near that right now. I'm just looking at what we've seen in the past and what we're facing at this point and how to prepare ourselves going forward. I mean, could this bring everything to a grinding halt? I mean, here's the thing, though. We depend so much on China import, export, mainly import, that if a travel ban affected the importing of goods, then that's a significant issue. I don't think anybody would argue with that. Could we witness the return of the panic buying frenzy that we once saw that emptied out the shelves of Costco, Walmart, and Target just a few years ago? Possibly, but maybe not. History usually repeats itself, but it's usually not a direct or a one-to-one. Usually it kind of rhymes more than repeating itself, if that makes sense. I mean, but we did see shelves nationwide dwindling, and people were pretty much snatching up everything that they can get their hands on, toilet paper and whatnot. So I'm just saying it is a possibility. Congress is basically demanding President Biden to ban travel between the United States and China until we get this virus under control. Okay. That's what they're saying. But, let's just kind of move on from that. Thanksgiving's behind us. We're heading into the holiday season. And guys, signs of financial distress are already becoming increasingly apparent. And there's no surprise that people tend to spend more during this time. The level of debt accumulation, particularly in the form of credit card debt, right? It's reaching unprecedented heights. We've already hit the $1 trillion mark in credit card debt in 2023 for the very first time in history. And so, there's a lot of details regarding this whole debt crisis and, of course, the potential impact on the average American family and, of course, the broader economy. I mean, this recent surge in debt is nothing short of alarming. Credit card loans rose by a staggering 1.6% in October this year, slightly higher than the normal 0.7% increase seen during this period. I mean, while some of the surge is attributed to holiday spending, Black Friday, yada, 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 it's very essential to recognize that a substantial portion was actually driven by immediate financial needs. And this trend seems to be a little bit more favorable for businesses, especially retailers, Target, Walmart, Best Buy, Costco, Sam's Club, you name it, right? Especially as they experience higher earnings during this holiday season. However, the real problem lies in the ability of people to pay back this mounting debt. All right. Now, the rise in this debt is paralleled by an increase in delinquencies. The average rate of a 30-day delinquency across major lenders recently jumped to 0.16 from September to October this year, right? Now, this is a considerable deviation from the normal amount of increase that we see. And so this points out some very worrying trends that are indicating that not only are people accumulating debt at an unprecedented rate, People are going into debt at an unprecedented rate. Like Dave Ramsey's probably losing sleep over this, right? But they're also becoming delinquent on their payments even faster. They're leveraging platforms like PayPal to pay over time and Sezzle and stuff like that. Let me know if you've ever used anything like this. By the way, we got well over 300 people in our live right now. If you guys could each take a second, drop a quick like for the video, I would really appreciate it. It just helps get this message out to more people. By the way, if you haven't already, get your free home warranty quote. There's a link in the description down below this video. Never be caught off guard by another very unexpected home repair again. There's a free home warranty link in the description and in the pinned comment of this video. Me and my family ended up getting a brand new refrigerator just the other day because the warranty company couldn't fix the one we had. They ended up cutting us a check and, hey, we got a new refrigerator. So I'm just making sure that my community is aware of, that this is out here, and, we're heading into a season of uncertainty. And the best thing that I think that we can all do is to prepare. So there's a home warranty link in the description and as a pinned comment. Check it out. It takes about 10 seconds. Charge-offs, the debts that lenders attempt to collect but can't get their money back due to non-payment, those are surging. Well, that's not a good sign. We saw this back in around the 2008 timeframe. The number of charge-offs started escalating. In fact, charge-offs increased by 0.77%, which is significantly higher than the average increase of 0.18%. Now, of course, the statistic signifies that people are borrowing even more extensively, but the biggest problem here is not just that they're borrowing, but that they're failing to repay the debts. And this pointing to basically an unsustainable financial situation. Now, one of the most distressing aspects of this debt crisis is the disproportionate impact on lower income households. And recent studies have actually shown how Florida residents, especially due to higher HOA fees, higher property taxes, higher homeowners insurance policies in the state of Florida, Florida residents are disproportionately being impacted by this debt crisis. And so as these expenses continuously increase, as more people continue to migrate into the state of Florida, the good old Sunshine State, many people are finding it very difficult, especially longtime residents of the state of Florida, just to continue to keep a roof over their heads. I mean, if you're already living paycheck to paycheck and your property taxes went up $2,000 a year, and your homeowner's insurance policy, because of, multiple category 4 and 5 hurricanes coming through the state over the last several years, has jacked up your interest rates to a point of 200%, 300%. We're seeing reports that people are seeing their homeowner's insurance policy in Florida go from $4,000 a year to $12,000 a year. That's an $8,000 increase. The average person can't afford to just take on an extra $8,000 per year in homeowners insurance policy expenses alone, on top of mortgage payments, on top of property tax increases. And, a large part of this influx in prices is due to so many people migrating to the state of Florida post-pandemic. Low interest rates, people looking to move out of the states that they're in. A lot of the blue states were moving, a lot of blue state residents, especially high income blue state residents from states like California and New York, were moving to Florida because it was a great deal. Florida was always a discounted real estate market in comparison to California and Florida, compared to California and New York, because Florida, which is always cheaper than those two states. And Florida had minimal to no mask policies. There were no mandates taking place. So this just created this huge influx. Then, of course, everyone I don't want to say all investors, but lots of investors caught wind of the fact that people were able to make a tremendous amount of money in Florida by buying up cheap real estate and then throwing it on Airbnb and making a significant profit from doing so. Now, definitely want to just take a quick moment to shout out Concrete in My Veins. Thank you so much for the shout out. Thank you so much for the super chat. Really appreciate it. Not in the US, but your topics are always on point, especially on the sickness topic. Keep up the good content. I appreciate the support. I really do appreciate that. So yeah, but yeah, like I said, these and I'm talking about Florida right now, but Florida is like the one of the markets here in the United States that saw one of the biggest spikes. We also saw it in Las Vegas. Las Vegas saw a very significant spike as well. Both states don't have state income taxes, so there was a lot of financial incentive to want to move to these states. But this financial incentive begins to dissipate as more and more people flock to it. It's always supply and demand, folks. So as that supply began to dwindle, we know the state of the housing market, the state of the inventory market in terms of housing. So as that demand to live there went up, so did the prices. And if you've already been there, the demand to stay there, the demand to stay there has made your cost of living even more expensive. So if you're on Social Security, SSI, SSDI, any kind of fixed income, and you're feeling the pinch of inflation and the ever rising costs, and your income's not increasing, well, that's a significant problem. And then, so we're going to find more and more people forced out of the state of Florida and other states that are seeing their expenses rise faster than their incomes. And this can create a tremendous problem for families and the local economies themselves. Now, of course, the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston discovered that households with annual incomes of $50,000 or less are struggling to meet their credit card obligations. And they're hitting utilization numbers like 80 to 90% of their available credit. Now, anybody who knows anything about credit, and if you don't know anything about credit, that's fine. I didn't know anything about credit years ago, but educate yourself on credit. If you're using 80 to 90% of your credit, even if you've never missed a payment, your credit score is going to take a significant hit. Generally speaking, credit card companies don't want to see your credit card utilization greater than 30%. Now, me personally, I like to keep it well under 20%, and I pay off the credit cards like twice a month. And that's a strategy that I've implemented over the years, because by paying the credit card off twice a month, number one, your balance never gets big. Well, it depends on how much you're spending on a regular basis in relation to your available credit. But if you pay it off twice a month, that would mean that you could never be late, because you're paying two payments within a month. So it's impossible to ever be late. So that's a key to having great credit, just making on-time payments. So if you have a strategy in place that allows you to just kind of pay off on, your credit cards every single month, twice per month, you'll never be late. Number two, it also keeps your credit card utilization down, because if you're paying it off twice a month, it could never be high, theoretically. So anyway, even individuals with these higher incomes, $100,000 a year, $150,000 a year, $200,000 per year incomes, $300,000 per year incomes, these high net worth, high income individuals with higher incomes, they're heavily relying on credit cards, with some people utilizing nearly 70% of their available credit. Now, the thing is a lot of these higher income individuals are in states like California. They're in states like New York. And because of the rising cost of living, sure, they make $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 a year, but it may cost $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 a year just to survive where they live. So this high income it could theoretically be having the same buying power as someone making $75,000 a year living in the state of Alabama, if that makes sense. And so this financial strain it's a significant concern, and it really just kind of illustrates that the debt crisis is literally crossing all income brackets. Well, guys, I really hope that you guys appreciated the topics that we touched on today, and you're taking notes, you're preparing, you're getting your family ready. Again, there's a link in the description down below to get your free home warranty quote. It only takes about 10 seconds. One of the best decisions me and my wife have ever done. Make sure you guys check that out. I've also got a list for items that I would have in my house to prepare for anything that's coming down the pipeline in terms of a health scare and health crisis coming down the pipeline. Make sure to check out that list. It is in the description down below this video. I wish you guys the best. Today is Monday. Let's make it a good one. Y'all be safe.